Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chai Time Data Science Show. In this episode, I interview Kaggle Grandmaster Dmitry Danevskiy, whose team has just finished first on the Google Quest Q&A labeling Kaggle competition. And with that gold medal, Dmitry has just achieved the title of becoming a Grandmaster in the competitions tier. And as you know, we talk about his journey on Kaggle and into data science on this episode, along with their first position solution to the Google Quest competition. Dmitry is currently working as a machine learning specialist, a machine learning research engineer at Researcher. We also discuss about his work. Kaggle has impacted his work and his take on where does Kaggle help you in data science. Without further ado, here's my interview with Kaggle Grandmaster Dmitry Danevskiy about their first position solution, Kaggle and real world data science. Please enjoy the show. Hi everyone, I'm on the call with someone who's just become a grandmaster, Dmitry Danevskiy. Dmitry, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Hello. My name is Dmitry. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, and sure. And recently, our team won the Google Quest Q&A labeling challenge on Kaggle. Yeah, and this was my 5th gold medal, and therefore I became a Kaggle Grandmaster, right?
Congratulations on both the things. We'll talk about the competition in a bit, but once you become a grandmaster, do you get entry into a secret fight club? Do you gain any secret abilities? How's the feeling? Can you describe the feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I can say that this final step is like something like really specific because, prior to becoming a grandmaster, you have to do all these other competitions, and probably this final one wasn't like the most challenging because the first reason is that the competition itself wasn't that hard for me for several reasons, and probably the second one is that given all the experience I got from other competitions, it was just easier. Yeah. So, but yeah, in general, yeah, becoming a grandmaster is like a huge step for me because it's something you could tell people and they just wow, that's really awesome. In the sense that this is great. But in terms of like feelings that I like became like much stronger in terms of like doing machine learning, it's not at all. I mean, I feel absolutely the same as I felt like a month ago. About the competition, probably I will tell it like a bit later, but yeah, in general, it was like I have to build a system that would automatically score Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange answers and questions by 30 different attributes, like for instance, how good the question is and how the answer answers the questions, like to what extent it answers the question. Yeah.
I guess we can talk about the competition first. Usually we talk about, I talk about the guest journey, but so could you highlight the competition? What was the challenge in the Google Quest Q&A challenge?
Sure. So as I said, you like given some questions and answers from Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange and all the sites like Ask Ubuntu and probably some some like less common, like photography, dot stack exchange, dot com. Yeah, you have all these questions and answers from like in a raw format, and you have to build a system. Probably it's like an NLP system that should analyze those questions and answers, and output some predictions on how the question is like well formulated. Does it have like a commonly accepted answer, and so on. Yeah, and we had like around 6,000 of labeled examples. In our training set, and around like 3 or 4 in the testing set. Yeah.
Okay. Was this similar to any competitions you've done in the past? Did you have any code that you could just stick on top of this competition for a baseline?
Well, I'm not sure, because I'm actually not that into NLP. I'm actually like trying to do like different competitions, but because I never did serious NLP competitions before, except for probably before this competition, our team. Yuri and Alak, we took part into other NLP competitions. It was like just before this competition, and that competition was on a like very related topic. And there we had to do question answering, like in a standard form where you have like this text and you have to find a span of easy tags that answers the question. And there we also had to use some NLP stuff, but that competition was really different because this task is like absolutely like about other stuff. So in some sense I had some similar experience, but in other sense I didn't.
Period that you were involved in the competition, like when did you sign up, and how was your time and efforts involved throughout this duration, and your teams?
So I guess we decided to jump into this competition because we felt a bit frustrated because we in that previous competition we actually finished on the 13th position.
Yeah,
that was the top seller position. So we felt that we want something like revenge in a good sense. I guess that's the reason we actually started doing this. Doing this one.
So once you signed up for it, what were your go-to steps? Or generally speaking, when you sign up for any competitions, how do you approach the problem?
So it really depends on the competition, because for some competitions you could just use some old code from the problem you have already solved, but for some others you have to write your own pipeline, as it was in the previous Google Q&A TF 2.0 competition, where I had to write my pipeline entirely from scratch. But here we decided not to not to reinvent things and just pick the best public baseline available and made it work much better. But I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you're like really experienced, because public kernels often contain a lot of mistakes. It will work.
Okay, so if you could describe the solution overview and the final solution that made it to the first position.
Actually the most valuable thing we realized was that the data size is like really, really small. So like 6,000 samples is like real small data sets by modern standards, and even with use of transfer learning, one could expect to to have a relatively low score with that small data set. So from the first day, we thought on how we could actually utilize some external data that was allowed in this competition. And there are like a lot of external data because you have access to all this Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange posts. Yeah, and so I guess our like two main things that made us yet one. They are on domain pre-training, where we just use the standard BERT pre-training on the available Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange data with an external metadata that comes from the post, like the number of upvotes and whether the particular answer was accepted as an answer. And we and additionally to this standard masked language model task, we added this additional task to predict those attributes, like the number of upvotes for the post. And and this sort of pre-training really helped us because our models, they became like much more suitable for working on this particular domain, while a standard BERT or other model would just use some general domain knowledge that probably will not work that good. Yeah, and the second really related stuff is to use pseudo labeling, which is like a really common technique used by in probably almost any competition since, I don't know, like probably like 3 years ago. So so and here we do not we decided to not like reinvent things and just use a regular pseudo labeling pipeline where you have some unlabeled you have some unlabeled data. You use your already existing models to predict labels on those data and add these labels to your training set. There were like some caveats with this, but I guess we describe them on the forum. So I guess I will not outline them here because it's like really too technical. So you could read if you're very interested. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned you use transformer models towards your solution, and that's slightly contrary compared to, you mentioned it's also smaller data size. Did you run any experiments or any other intuition? Why was that a better option?
Are you asking about did we evaluate it, like what is the difference between like standard BERT models and our fine-tuned models on the domain data?
Correct. And because you mentioned that it's a relatively smaller data, and usually transformers are really good at bigger data sets.
Yeah, but the idea was to use to take a standard BERT pre-trained model on like a huge data set, right? And then take relatively small external data set, but still like a relatively big data set. So I guess we used around like a couple of millions posts from the Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange in order to even more like fine-tune the BERT, but now on the domain data, and then reuse this on the available training set, which was small. But this pre-training helped the model, not to struggle with this like very specific tokens found on, say, on Stack Overflow, where you have all these code snippets and so on.
Okay. Now, in hindsight, generally speaking, how has working on Kaggle competitions impacted your professional life? And I'm trying to ask this question on the podcast more recently, since people are debating that Kaggle isn't data science. You don't learn much data science skills, and these are mostly from people who are from the outside Kaggle world. What's your take on that, and what have your learnings been while being active on Kaggle?
I see this is like a really good question. Thanks. Well, actually, I think that both sides, I mean, those who are like for Kaggle and those who are like against Kaggle, they have some good arguments. But my opinion is that Kaggle is really good in in boosting your technical machine learning skills and data modeling skills, data visualization skills, and it does its job like probably better than any other activity. Yeah, probably if you like work on like on a really good job and you have like a really strong team, probably it's better to spend your time entirely on this job and not to even think about Kaggle. But for I guess 95% of people who are interested in machine learning, this is not an option because there are like not that many good teams and not that many really interesting jobs. So if you really want to make your technical skills really good, you probably are really you should be like really interested about Kaggle. Yeah, but Kaggle is typically criticized by being like really away from what is happening in real life. But I wouldn't agree with that because the modeling is like almost the same. But yeah, sure, you will not learn how to communicate with business guys, or how to how to write efficient Python code to extract data from some like stream and so on. But this is like no one says that you will learn this. I mean, it's like yeah. So you shouldn't like expect Kaggle to teach you something it shouldn't, right? Yeah. So I would say that Kaggle is like really good at boosting your technical skills, and you shouldn't expect to learn something else because just not what Kaggle is about.
Those can only be learned in the real world, like you said. Talking to business people can only be learned by talking to business people, and that becomes a RL loop from the real world.
Yeah, sure. You could learn, you could learn some soft skills on Kaggle because, for instance, if you are participating in a team, it might be like really hard to make your teammates to do what you want, or want to kind of convince yourself that you have to do what they want because sometimes they're right, sometimes you are right, and that involves some patience and ability to to listen to other people, and that's I guess what is like really important in business as well. And especially when you have this very very stressful situations, for instance, where you have to decide what submission to choose or probably what approach to follow because you don't have time to to test all the approaches. This is I guess this really makes your soft skills and negotiation skills much stronger.
What's your teaming up strategy, and how do you distribute your workflow when in a team on
Oh
Kaggle?
yeah, I see. Thanks. So yeah, it's like really depends. So like typically when I'm like in a team, everyone has something in mind to work on. So yeah, so like for instance, in this particular competitions, so I was like mostly thinking about general strategy about like training models, about using pseudo labels, about using how to set up our like final ensemble, how to how to select models and so on. While say other guys were thinking about something else. So for instance, Yuri and Dmitry were thinking about pre-training, and they spent like a lot of time training like different pre-training approaches, and and Oleg was interested in training like really deep big models like BART that eventually turned out to be our strongest model. So we typically just say what we think, and then if no one has any counter arguments why you shouldn't work on this, you just work on what you want. And because typically I merge with those who already has some vision, some success on other competitions, so they typically know what they are doing, and I trust them, and they trust me.
Makes sense. Did your Kaggle journey start after your data science journey, or both started at the same time? Is there a story there?
So I guess I started Kaggle 2 years after I actually started doing any machine learning.
Okay.
So at the beginning of my career, I actually tried to do some Kaggle, but those attempts were unsuccessful because I either wasn't really interested in the competitions, or I felt that I'm not I don't know, I'm not really capable of solving this. I don't know, and I just wanted to focus on my job and so on. And I guess probably one reason I wasn't paying a lot of attention to Kaggle at the time, because I had a really strong team on my job, and I just wanted to work with them, and it was that was the best option for me.
Okay.
Back then.
How was the first competition experience like? How has the journey changed since the first medal to up till now?
So the progress is well, so my first competition, my first serious competition, where I just went from this from the beginning to the end. It was this data science bowl 2018, and there I got my silver medal, my first medal. And since then, I don't know, I participated in around 15 competitions for the last around 2 years. And I don't know, it might take an hour to tell about all the competitions I was involved in. But in general, I could say that this experience was really valuable for me, because I learned so much. And it's just it doesn't mean that, for instance, you can't learn from the industry, from the other people and so on, just because, Kaggle offers you to work on so many different problems, and it makes you to compete against the best minds in the field. So you just, it's no chance you will not learn anything, and there's a really big chance you will learn a lot. So in general, I would say that this time was really great, and really thankful to everyone who was with me and who helped me and who competed against me. It's also really important.
Awesome. Coming to your current day job, you're working at Researcher. What tasks are you working on? What does a day in your life currently look like?
So Researcher is a startup here in Kiev, founded around 2 years ago. For some reason, my start at Researcher, for some reason, it coincide with my Kaggle start, and
Okay.
but I don't know, it's sounds really unrelated, because I do not really relate my job to Kaggle, but but in my job we do something called voice conversion, which is something like, you take a model and you make other other person to speak in the voice of some other person. So for instance, you want to reuse the voice of a famous actor to add some scene to a movie, and you would reuse our approach to make this work without this actor available.
Okay.
And this is like really similar to, for instance, text to speech problem, where you have text and you have to synthesize corresponding audio, but we work on top of other person's audio instead of text. And we mostly work with deep learning approaches. We use, which at least like try to use recent advances in the field. We use a lot of different generative models like WaveNet and so on. So my job is mostly around this, but also currently I'm also responsible for technical hiring. So I do some technical interviews. And also we're like really research oriented company, so we do a lot of our own internal research. So I have to read a lot of papers. Sometimes I present those papers to the other members of the team. And so on.
Okay. How do you balance time spent on competitions with life and work? That's the golden question.
Sure. Well, actually, it was like really hard at the beginning, because I didn't have a lot of experience, and I had to spend like a lot of time coding and stopping my pipelines. I mean, like when I was working on some competition.
Yeah.
But now I think that I have like a lot of code that I could reuse from the previous competitions. So typically I do not code much anymore when I'm into a competition. So typically it takes me like around an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening to add some and some snippets and probably change some hyperparameters and just run some models on a GPU and just go sleep. And in general, like I think that typically it doesn't hurt much my personal life and my work and
Okay.
So
if you were to give some advice to maybe a person who will interview with you next in the future, who will be doing a technical interview and is just starting their journey, what would be your best advice?
Are you asking about like starting journey like on Kaggle specifically, or
Kaggle or data science generally speaking?
Wow, this is a really hard question, because I started my journey like around 4 years ago, and things have changed so much since then. So for instance, back then I didn't have a lot of options where to start, so I completed some basic machine learning courses like Andrein's course and probably some others. I read some books, but now we have so many options. Just like to start so many different online classes, so many different books, podcasts you could listen to, and so on. But in general, I think that if you are if you are really serious about data science and machine learning, and you really want to be an expert in this, it's really important to pay attention to fundamentals. So I wouldn't advise like start from learning some libraries and frameworks, because they give you some like really quick payoff. So you could just like reuse some existing code and make your pipeline work, make your model work. But this is not what makes you an expert. An expert is one who who knows things like really in depth and could, for instance, propose some adjustments to an existing model in order to make it work on some new data or a new type of problem and so on. And for this, you really have to be good at fundamentals. You have to understand how those models work on the low level. And this is only achievable if you are really, good at math, say calculus, linear algebra, computer science. And I would advise to spend a lot of time on this. However, you shouldn't forget about the practical stuff like Kaggle and learning tools. But I think that fundamentals is what makes one an expert, not libraries and frameworks.
That's amazing advice. Before we end the call, what would be the best platforms to stay connected with your follow your work apart from Kaggle? And I'll definitely have these in the show notes for anyone who wants to connect with you or follow you.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I typically post something on LinkedIn, but it's probably not the best platform for technical stuff. So I recently started my Twitter. I don't know, like if you have like a link, so probably I could send this link. Oh, sure. Okay. So there I plan to post some stuff related to machine learning and probably I plan to do some blog posts on a wide range of topics. Now I know finally it's like more like I'm done with Kaggle. I'm not saying I'm like I want to stop competing, but I guess it's now I could compete with like much slower pace and do not really care about the results because I could focus on educating and sharing my knowledge. So I plan to do a series of blog posts on different topics, and probably I will share them mostly on Twitter, and you could just follow me there if you're interested.
That's amazing. For the audience, I've looked up your handle. It's Danevskiy, spelled at DANEVSKIYD. So please follow Dmitry on Twitter if you're too lazy to scroll to the show notes and find the link. But Dmitry, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and thank you for sharing all of these amazing advices.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me and also for listening to me. It was my pleasure to be here and to share my journey with the rest of the community.
Really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.